Thank you. All right, thank you. I think we all know who our speaker is today. Caine is the director of the Oklahoma State University, president of the Oklahoma State University Alumni Association. Before that, she spent 7 years in Oklahoma State School Boards Association, traveling the state, working with boards and superintendents and evaluation, board development, those kind of things. Before that, she was the Stillwater superintendent here. In 2014, she was named the Oklahoma Superintendent of the Year. Recognized by the Journal Record in 2011, 12, and 13 as one of Oklahoma's top 50 women of the year. Has her BS and MS from Kansas State University, her doctorate from Oklahoma State University. Interesting thing about her is that her background is Swedish, and each year she is also a Christmas maniac. So she's already planned her funeral service. It's going to be full of Christmas detail. So I kind of can't wait for it to happen, but I don't want to. No, wait, don't.
See ya. Oh my gosh.
She also
fine
makes
Richard for that. Go ahead and fine him.
I think that's a $10 fine.
$10. The Swedish dessert, the spritz. She makes the Swedish spritz every year, and hundreds of dozens of those, and passes them out to all kind of folks. So you all be looking this coming Christmas. We're going to get some. Maybe we'll get some Christmas.
You're not.
Maybe somebody will share. We'll see. We are so glad to have you here. Welcome and be as our speaker today. Here we go.
I'm wired, yeah. Thank you, Richard. Wow. First I felt old because Carla was talking about she wasn't born in 91. And then Richard says that I'm going to be dead. So I'm just like, wow. And then I remember, wait a minute, I'm at the Noon Rotary. This is the way they are. So you guys always make me feel so welcome. I know the majority of you, and it's hard to believe Kevin Clark was my boss 8 years ago when I retired. He was still on the board, and so he's still the same. Made a comment about my pink, and I said, well, pink and orange are the hot thing right now, Kevin. So anyway, it's just so good to be here with you all. And finally, you circled back around after Richard and I and Petty had that look like, then you circled, you did the Kevin thing, yeah. But Tracy and I bought a house. We haven't moved in yet. We're still remodeling it. We had surprises. And so we hope by next week we'll be in. But it's so good to be back in Stillwater. And as you know, we've just had such a connection, even when we were back in Oklahoma City and I was living that post-superintendent life. We still came up here because there are several philanthropies that we're pretty passionate about. One of them, Stillwater Medical Foundation, because literally Dr. Polidassu, I call him Dr. P, saved Tracy's life at homecoming 6 years ago. So we are forever indebted to the hospital, but they're just great people, as you all know, in Stillwater. This small community raises a lot of money doing a lot of good. And so for us to be back full time, it just feels really good. I call we're home. So getting to talk to you all today, I won't answer Richard's calls anymore when he asked me to come talk. And no, you're not getting any cookies. So just a little bird walk. So I am Swedish. My dad was a career Air Force pilot, as you all know, and his name was Don Peterson. And I'm firstborn Air Force brat. Explains a lot, doesn't it, Christy, about how I am. And so his flight name on his jet was Pete Peterson, okay? So 8 years ago when I became grandma, I looked at Laura and I said, I can't be grandma. You know, you got to have a cute name. So I said, do something with Peterson. Within 5 minutes, y'all, she called back and she said, I've got it. Petey. P-E-T-E-Y. And I went, oh, no one's going to have it. And I'm channeling Daddy. I said, that's perfect. Well, she'd always called Tracy Pops. So it's Petey and Pops. And you know, Pat knows, you got to have cute name when you're grandparents, right? Yeah, Susu and Pop. I mean, it just fits, right? And the girls love it. And I got to tell you, when I see them once a week, there's nothing better when I'm back in Oklahoma City. And I walk up and they go, Petey, you're here. And I'm going, I am, sweet girls. What do you need? Right? It's just, oh, it's the best. It's better than kids. But on the cookies, yeah, I am a Christmas-holic. I really am. And no, everyone does not get them, Richard. It's family, close friends. It was something my grandma did. She was very poor, a farmer. size 5 shoe. So wherever we lived around the world, she would ship these S cookies to us in a size 5 shoe box. And Daddy would take one out, 6 people in our family, and he'd hand us one at a time. It was like gold. Yeah, well, I don't wear a size 5. And I do ship them off, though, to all the family and then close friends. But it's just a good tradition. And she did S's instead of the cookie press Christmas tree and wreath because the Swedes are a proud people. So they weren't going to do what everyone else did. So Grandma and her friends would write S's with the cookie press. So by the time I've done my 178 dozen before the holiday, let's just say this hand, you could put a needle in it and it's not going to hurt. It's pretty tough from pushing that cookie dough through there and writing. And of course, I'm a teacher, so I have great handwriting. So the S's look great. But anyway, just a little bird walk. But yeah, I'm pretty proud of that. But it's celebrations. And that's what you all do every day, right? You celebrate our great community. So thanks for having me. I did put in writing that this is my final paid gig. I'm working on my 3rd and final retirement. It was interesting this is year 2 now. The board's still happy. I have a board of 21, Kevin, not 5, 21. And I just tell them I'm here to serve. And we're here to serve. It's not about Caine. It's not about the Alumni Association. We're here to serve OSU and our alumni. So that's very cool. But it was interesting. All last year when I was doing my listening tour with all the leaders on campus and chapter leaders, blah, blah, what do we do well? How can we do better? And how can I serve you? And the campus leader said, well, Ann, you're number 4 in 6 years. How long are you staying? And why should I tell you what we need? Yeah, right? And I knew that. I had been on the alumni board, and the board recruited me through the recruiter to apply, because at first I said no. Living the dream job, see the babies every week, right? And he said, no, you talk to Tracy and the kids, you call me back. Well, here I am, because they all said, Mom, you got to do it. So anyway, they said 4 out of 6, and I said, you know me, you know I'm competitive, I own it, and we do what we say we're going to do, and we have to get back to leading with integrity and doing what's right for OSU and taking care of our alumni, getting them reconnected. And so I didn't tell them how long I'm staying, but I said, I have a few goals, and we're going to get after it. So anyway, it truly is the last one. I've got to figure out to play some year. You all know that have Medicare cards. At one point, you got to play, right? Well, I've got the Medicare card, but I haven't figured out how to play full time yet. So it's probably a good thing. I might get in trouble if I retire right now. But anyway, I just thought it would be interesting if you all knew a little bit about what we do. Did you know that there are 279,000 living alumni around the world? 279,000 living ones, right? And just in Oklahoma, 143,000 alumni. 143. So the majority of them are within our state. We also have a lot of international. I thought Kara's question about, I stink as a president. I only knew one answer out of all those questions. I need to do some more homework. Or like Richard said, well, just read the state magazine. I went, oh, I know. I'll start reading it in my spare time. But anyway, we have alumni in 149 countries. So which country do you all think has the highest number of OSU alumni? Which one? India, almost 1,400 alumni. Isn't that great? Yeah, that's very cool. And then the other thing I learned, excuse me, as I was doing this listening, people would say, why should we join you? We give money to athletics. We give money to the foundation, right? They give money back to their individual colleges. Why should we join you or, doing anything financially with the Alumni Association? And so I just talk about how we're here to support alumni, and we're membership-based. And everything we do supports OSU. And so I just talked about this other number. So last year, Blair Atkinson, who let me just say does an amazing job at the foundation. If you don't know Blair, she's a friend of mine, and we work together very well. And we're working on breaking down the silos between our two organizations so that we can work more closely together for what we call the model advancement. So it's not separate. We're talking more, our two teams, and working together, figuring out how to do things right and well. Last year, we saw this piece of research that the foundation had hired to have done. More than 70% of their donors gave because they were first engaged through the Alumni Association. 70%. So when people talk about, Ann, what is your value? What do you do up there all day? So, my smart mouth is, well, I just really kind of hang out in the afternoons and I watch the game shows and then someone will run down to Aspen, get me a little flavored coffee, low calorie, and we just kind of hang out. And you do? And I thought, oh, geez, we don't need that going around on social media, right? Here's what she's doing now. So then I have to, of course, fess up. That's not the world. I'm actually on the road a lot. But I just thought that was huge, 70%. So we have a role to play in getting our alumni back engaged. We do away game tailgates. Last year we started this. We went to every away game. I won't talk about the performance on the field because I'll get very quiet and then the talk is over. But we had over 300 alumni that showed up to each one. Isn't that amazing? Yeah. And even this time we went to Arizona State, and Tracy and I, so my CFO and I were the two staff that went. We're the oldest ones on staff, and we're out there in the 113-degree temperatures. And I thought, what is wrong with this scheduling? Who was in charge of this? Oh yeah, I was. that was bad. But we had over 200 alumni that showed up there in the heat. Yeah. Last weekend, I might have been really quiet on the ride home because we also schlep Iron Monk beer up to the tailgate from here. We call it a taste of home. And so it was Tracy's and my turn to schlep the beer to Iowa State, okay? We had 100 people show up there. And let me just say, they probably needed the beer. We'd already loaded up the tailgate when we went into the game. We probably should have kept it set up for afterwards because we were just really quiet on the way home. But I think that's a great way to connect. We found a gap. We did a strategic plan last year with a lot of community stakeholder input. And we found that people are more engaged in the 50 years older group than our young alumni. And you all know this. I was telling my table friends today that a young alumni, young college graduates, do not like to join groups, right? They want to do something that impacts the world, right? So whether what? They do.
They want to talk about it.
Okay, well, Christy, we'll have that conversation later. We'll talk about that. But they want to do something humanitarian, right? Well, they should join Rotary, right? You guys take care of the world. But they don't want to join a group. And so when we think about trying to engage our alumni, we're really looking in our strategic plan about engaging our young alumni. We also know that there are other gaps in there that we need to take care of, like just our students on campus. What I was excited about is we had over 1,800 freshmen this year join. So one thing Burns Hargis did when he was president, he set it up so that students could put our dues on the bursar. Plus they get it for $600 instead of $1,000. So they can be a lifetime alum member by the time they graduate, and it's all paid for. That was very cool. Very cool. So we're working on how do we get the students engaged so they start thinking about giving back to their university before they graduate, and they're set up. And so we know if we can get them like that, they may not have the wherewithal to write even a $100 check the minute they graduate, but they know that they can come back and give back in mentoring or building other relationships with students that are still here, just some other way of giving back. And then just the last thing I want to talk about is just our refresh project. So this has kind of been an aha for me. I know how to pass a school bond election. I've never had to go out and just raise money. So I'm learning that skill now. And so our building, and you all remember when it was built, we were housed in the student union for 25 years. No, that's not right, 50 years. And then 20 years ago, the building we're in now opened, which is kind of crazy. So it needed what I call a refresh. Last year I called it remodel, and people thought that I was going to take it to the studs like I do in my personal homes. So I had to change the word to refresh. And so we're in phase 1 right now. So if you show up in our building for home game pep rallies, I lead a pep rally in Click Hall every home game. We have over 1,100 people that come back through our building on a home game day. And the pep band's there, Spirit Squad. Last time we honored our new assistant coach for wrestling, and he brought 3 All-American wrestlers with him, and they pumped up the crowd and got them going. But you'll notice we have new flooring. We're getting ready to hang all new technology. It'll be interactive down the whole big hall we call Legacy, telling our story. It's interesting watching. Over 75,000 people come through our building every year. Over 75,000. So it was getting faded, and the floor was, people were falling and tripping, and anyway. But over 50,000 of that number are potential students and their families. So last year I watched, we've had this plan crafted for 4 years to refresh the building, and the potential students would come and they'd look at the faded pictures which tell a story. But you know what, when they're up looking at KU, or they go to A&M or any of the other schools to visit, I don't know what the school down south does, I don't really pay attention, but it's interactive, right? So you walk in and it says, "Hi James, welcome to OSU. Here's your schedule for today. We're glad you're here. Take a bit of this back home with you," blah, blah, blah. They want something like that. So I would watch, and they'd look at these faded pictures along the big wall in Legacy Hall. In 5 minutes, they're done, and then they're all clustered around the fireplace waiting for the big meeting to start to talk to them about why they should come to OSU. So we're really excited about that opportunity. We can program it for big events, small events, but anyway, we're calling that the refresh. So I invite you to come check it out. November, that first phase should be finished and look much better. So I know you guys have been so respectful, but I know you like to ask me questions you think I won't answer or can't answer. So what questions do you have for me today?
Dr. Caine, I want to give like a quick story, testimonial,
Okay.
whatever you want to call it. So I work at the foundation, so I do ask people for money. And a couple weeks ago, we had our Hall of Fame event.
Yeah.
Several of the colleges did, athletics, all of them. And I'm meeting with someone who's being honored for the
Yeah.
College of Arts and Sciences and being inducted. And I've been cultivating this person for a while, having coffee with them. And she starts getting emotional and starts tearing up a bit. And she says, "I just want you to know that I'm going to," and I'm like on the edge of my seat. I'm like, "Yes, I'm about to get a big check. It's going to happen today." She goes, "I'm going to join the Alumni Association."
Kara, that's big to me.
Yes, no, it's big to me too. It was very sweet, and I was so happy for her. But that was
Oh my
I
gosh.
thought that was a great story for
That's
you to know.
awesome. Thank you for your help.
Yes. I guess I cultivated her to
You
join the
did.
Alumni Association.
Yeah, and so seriously, that's a good example of the advancement model that Blair and I have been working on. So as we're out and about cultivating the alumni relationship and getting them reconnected, right, we're figuring out how they want to help, and the staff at the foundation is too. And one of the things they work on is, are you a member of the Alumni Association, right? Yeah, so thank you. That's awesome. Oh, Marilyn, okay, I'm ready.
I sit on the board of what is now called Global OSU. It used to
Okay.
be School of Global Studies and
Studies,
International
right.
Partnerships. And we are really interested, as you know, in reaching out to alumni who are abroad. And in the last couple of years, we've had terrific success with those folks who are very prominent, writing big checks for OSU, and we want their involvement, you know, with
Yeah.
everything, particularly these days where the number of foreign students has dropped because they can't get visas, or you know, whatever the issues are.
And they don't have government support like they used
No,
to
they
pay
don't.
their way.
No, they
Yeah.
don't. So what are you all planning in that regard for global alumni?
Yeah, thank you, Marilyn. Good question, and I know the answer to this. And so the ambassadors, or the international grad that she's talking about, is Ambassador Roslani. You might have seen him in the media last year. He is the ambassador from Indonesia to the U.S. He's getting ready to have a big promotion, from what I understand. But he gave, and this is public information, I'm not sharing any confidential stuff, he wrote a check when he was at our pep rally before a game last fall. He had brought his 2 teenage kids over to tour OSU. So first I embarrassed him because I've got the microphone, and I say, "Don't you all think that Ambassador Roslani's kids should come to OSU when it's time for college?" And of course they all said yes. And I looked over, and the kids are like this, right? Don't embarrass a teenager. But then it was Mental Health Week. And so our president of student government got up and did his pitch. And right then, Ambassador came over and said, I'm giving you $50,000. Because he hadn't been back to Marilyn's point in 30 years. No contact, nothing. And 30 years after he graduated from OSU, he came back, had a great experience. The foundation took great care of him all weekend, and his kids loved it, and he wrote a check. Right. So in working with Dean Kluver, we're talking about doing an alumni regional meeting in Bali in June, and President Shrum has said she'll be there too, and trying to invite Indonesia, Vietnam, and Malaysian grads from those 3 countries, trying to do something more regional instead of, I mean, the resources aren't there to go to each individual country. And it's so quick. I mean, Ambassador Roslani told me that they can get anywhere in 1 to 2 hours once you get overseas. It's that long trip from here over to there that's the problem. But so we're working with Dean Kluver. He and I talk a lot. The trick with international students, it's even harder than staying connected with those in the U.S., is just how do we find them? Because a lot of the international students use their OSU email, and then if they don't update it in the database, then it's time to notify them of something coming in their area or in their country, and we don't know how to find them. So if anyone has a great idea on that, that'd be great, let me know. I know they communicate a lot on the app called WhatsApp. If any of you have international friends, you might be using that. But we're working with Dean Kluver on that. Yeah, great question, thank you. Other questions? Yes, sir.
So you just brought up one thing that I'll mention to you.
Okay.
Faculty that leave after less than 10 years do not get to keep their OK State email address.
Okay.
And that's been an issue for many of us, that after 6 months, your OK State goes away.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be really nice to get that continued. So that's one thought. Second thought is, for those of us that are not OSU grads, can you join the Alumni Association?
Oh, and I did not set you up, did I? Because my husband
She did not set
I
me
did
up.
not. My husband and I met at K-State, and we're lifetime alums of both. And Tracy's actually lifetime plus like me for OSU, and he's never taken a single class here. And he did it before I got this job. Did it a couple years ago. It's anyone that loves Orange and loves OSU. You want to support OSU. Yeah. I don't know that I can help you with the email question, but I surely could answer that other question. Yeah, thank you.
And
Oh, okay, heckler
this
number
is a good
one.
no, I won't heckle. Would an OSU Alumni Association membership be a good graduation gift?
Oh, nice. That's a great one. It is. And they would get it for $600, not $1,000. Yeah, we do a thing called grad finale. We do it twice a year, so December and May. And so don't freak out, those that don't like champagne, but we bring champagne in and they get a champagne toast. Well, this year we open it up. You didn't have to be a member of the Alumni Association to come, which I thought was crazy. Why would you limit the seniors to that, right? So I said, why don't we open it up? And so they did. So we had a lot of graduates come who weren't members yet. Well, they brought their family because they wanted to toast their soon graduate, right? And the parents are signing them up right then. We got so many that day, it was really interesting. I loved it. I might have said, you're welcome. Yeah, thank you, Christy. Great question.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Can I ask it as like a mic holder? Is that okay?
Allow it.
You've been a leader.
Another heckler.
You've been a leader for a long time, right? And you've said
Decades.
that one of the greatest lessons that your dad taught you was how to be a servant leader. Is that correct?
That's very true.
Would you maybe share one or two experiences, as my granddad would call them, kind of tuition moments where you really learned or took a step forward as a servant leader as you've been a leader throughout all these years?
That's really hard. Just one or two. Oh, I would have to say, well, there are a couple. First of all, I had a really just mind-blowing experience last March when I got to serve on a Women in Leadership panel. It was in our building, and it was President Shrum and our provost, Dr. Mendez, and then Blair Atkinson and myself. So it was the four of us, which was funny. Here we've been together all year, and we had never been together because all four of us are so busy. And so they were asking us all these questions, and one person asked a question about, name the females who were your mentors to get you started. And I said, well, this is how old I am. there weren't females. When I was here, there were 2 female superintendents in 6A, Dr. Kathy Burden in Union, and myself. So when I would go, no offense to all the men in the room, but I'd go to state meetings for superintendents, and I'd just look at my buddies and I'd say, well, here we go again, it's Ann and the boys. And they go, yep, here you are, Annie, it's Ann and the boys. I mean, back in the day, Daddy was a mentor while he was alive, and then 2 principals were the ones that convinced me to become a principal and then become a superintendent. And to this day, they're still my close friends and all of that. But what was powerful about that, back to your question, was at the very end, I had some female students walk up, and then there were 2 gentlemen that walked up, and they said, I never realized that maybe there was a time when women weren't in leadership as much as men. And it's like when I was talking to students last year, and they said, what was it like to get your doctorate? And I said, well, first of all, I didn't have a computer. I had a Smith Corona typewriter, right? And they didn't understand that there wasn't internet. So I had to copy the journals, and then I had to retype the whole chapter, right, when they would make corrections and mail them back to me in Oklahoma City. Well, and then one gentleman looked at me and he goes, well, why didn't you just cut and paste? And I went, I looked at him, and I know, I grew up in South Carolina, so in South Carolina you say, bless your heart. Sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. And I just looked at him and I said, oh, bless your heart. I said, cut and paste can't work on a typewriter, right? But that was a huge aha for me, because then that led to a great conversation that night with people about just women in leadership. And to this day, I mentor young female superintendents because that is a need in our state. So they'll call me early in the morning because they know I'm available, and I'll talk them through whatever they're working on. So that was an aha. And the other one, and not to be sad, but I think back to when we had the young man commit suicide in 2012, September 26, 2012, at our junior high. And that really, I'm just telling you, I remember Kevin looked at me that night after we called that special board meeting, and he came after and he goes, are you okay? And I just went, how can you be okay? You know, you're supposed to protect these almost 7,000 children, and one chose to do this today, right? But I learned through that because you couldn't think about how tired you are and everything else. You know, you've got board members needing things, and you've got principals and assistant principals needing, and parents needing things. But that wasn't the focus of, I couldn't think about all that. I had to think about, how do I help this? How do I help a school and a district really get back on track, right? So you just put yourself out there and do it. And to this day, I mean, I get so bunched up when someone talks to me and they say, I. It's not I, right? It's we. It's us. It's a team. And Daddy was just such a good mentor for me on that. So he didn't talk about Vietnam. He was there in 65, 66. Did you hear me tell this story somewhere? No? Okay, so just real fast. Make sure you're not going to get up and walk out on me. Okay. So he didn't talk about Vietnam until I was getting my doctorate, and that was in the early 90s. And so he said, so Annie, when you get this doctorate, what are you going to be called? And I said, well, Ann Caine. And he goes, you're not going to go doctor? And I went, well, you've never said, hi, I'm Colonel Peterson. You go, hi, Don Peterson, unless they're in trouble. Because I saw some airmen get in trouble because they took off, you know, whatever crime they committed, right? And they weren't supposed to when they were doing an ER, you know, their emergency plans, training stuff. And he goes, okay. So that's why the joke is in our house, after 44 years, one of us is always mad at the other, right? For something like, you snored, you took the covers. And so our friends say, that's why poor Tracy has to wake up every morning. Good morning, Dr. Caine. How did you sleep? Right? Bless his heart. But anyway, so then Daddy gets out this picture, and if I'd done PowerPoint, Kevin, I could have shown it, sorry. But I have a picture on my phone that Daddy got out then, and it's on the dirt runway in Vietnam, and he's standing next to his plane. So if you know anything about old military planes, the nickname was called the O-Bird. It's an O-1. And he didn't have a navigator. They literally bolted Daddy into the plane. The canopy bolted down, so we learned later he could never eject. And his plane was totally shot up. And I said, oh my gosh, I always knew you were a great pilot. And he said, no, just lucky and the grace of God. I went, wow. Anyway, so he's standing here, and he's real young, right? And he had his crew chief. And he said, I want you to know, my crew chief and our squadron do the hard job of getting my plane ready to fly so I can have the fun job of being the pilot. And then, I think I'm smart on some days. So he didn't have to say, when you're a principal now, when you become a superintendent, don't think you know all that. Take care of your team, right? He didn't have to hit me on the head. So that's why I say hire the best and get out of their way, right? Just support them. Just support them. And so I was very lucky. I had a great mentor, and I just try to model that for my people. And they see that when we're out and about working with alumni. Like, my husband gets mad at me because I'm schlepping coolers and hauling stuff and, driving in a car instead of flying like the rest of the team did. I mean, I'm not going to ask them to do something I'm not going to do. I just think that's so important. Yeah, so great question. Thank you so much. Any other questions? No? You guys are so awesome. Thank you.